and welcome to this, the 10th Reminiscence video from the Living Memory Association, and we're going to be revisiting technology but a little bit more modern, shall we say. So I'm going to start off here, and I think we'll start off with cassette players. I'm sure you'll all remember these, and again I love the clonking nature of these machines, so you'll remember that sound, and very satisfying putting in the cassette into the player there. Obviously you've got your buttons here, but of course these could record. So do you remember recording? A lot of people do, I do myself. You'd have a little mic here somewhere, just there, or you'd have an external mic. Do you remember recording the top 40, which usually came out on a Sunday? It was quite a ritual, if you like, and trying to edit it so you didn't get the DJ actually talking in between your favourite tracks. So that was a great thing. And of course, these were great fun. This is not only a cassette, but it is a radio as well. And this is a sharp one. The Japanese really took over this type of technology, I suppose you could say. And then slightly later on, of course, we got these, which this is a Philips version, but of course Sony Walkman was the big thing. So you would have your headphones on there, you'd put your tape in there, and you'd listen to your music as you walked along, hence Sony Walkman. But there were lots of various companies that did their own version of that. And the micro cassette, which of course was more associated really with businesses and recording meetings and dictation and that sort of thing. But these were really tiny little cassettes. But before all that, before the cassettes, and this is a lovely little, well, not little, it's extremely heavy, but nonetheless quite compact version. Before we had cassettes, where your tape was in a cassette, in a small box, if you like, we had reel to reel. So you'd have your tape loose that would go through here. As I say, this is quite a neat little version. Usually they were a lot bigger than that. And last episode we talked about radios, and we looked at the big wooden cabinet radios. Well, of course, transistors meant that we got a lot smaller radio. So this is a Bush sandpiper radio. Again, with some quite interesting stations on here: Helsinki, Third, North, Welsh, London. BBC One has made it onto here, Radio 1. A bit more modern. And of course there were these. Do you remember having one of these? Tiny little transistors, which you really have to stick to your ear like that. Slightly away from, we talked about televisions in the last episode, but look at this. This is a Sony Colour Watchman. So not only the Walkman, but the Watchman. So this is a television, and there it is. Talk about technology becoming that much smaller. I'll have a little look at some phones next. So, phones. Now, do you remember the fax machine? This is a lovely Samsung, complete still with its, was it thermal paper, I think, in a fax machine. So, emails really totally kind of made these redundant. I think they might still be used, as I think they're considered a little more secure, perhaps. Somebody might know about that, but basically this was a message, a paper message that was sent through the phone line. So I remember lots of businesses would have two numbers, which was the line to speak to somebody and also the fax line, and occasionally you'd dial the wrong number and you would get this funny kind of noise going on. But basically your message would come through here, it would print off, and then you'd rip it off, and there you'd have it actually on a piece of paper. We're talking about at the moment before our mobile phones, but this is a kind of early version, if you like, of a mobile phone. Unfortunately, we don't have the iconic brick one that you may remember from the 80s, but this is an AA phone unit, and this was designed for businesses and maybe travelers, reps who would go around. So you have your membership number here, and if you broke down, you would be able to phone for, and I believe this is a Vodafone unit, you'll be able to phone to be picked up. But as you can see, there's a battery pack in here. This is a massively heavy unit which you kept in your car, and you would plug it in also to your cigarette lighter in your car. Moving on, this is a fairly early mobile phone. This is a Cellnet Philips model, and I'm pretty much sure that the only thing you would be able to do on this is actually phone, but you might be able to tell me. Could you text on this kind of model? It's quite big. If you think, it's probably the same size as a large smartphone, and yet, as I say, I think you can pretty much only phone on it. Mobile phone prices came down, and I think this is probably a Nokia or possibly an Ericsson phone. Prices coming a lot down, and of course you're getting a little more consumer friendly by having different colours. When do you remember getting your first mobile phone? And we spoke again in the last episode cameras, and we had box brownies out. I suppose the equivalent box brownie, but a little more sophisticated, the Olympus Trip camera, which was a solid and took really good photographs. That's probably 1970s. Model started in the 1960s. Much more familiar probably to a lot of people is one like this Hanimex here, which was a kind of autofocus, auto everything, so you didn't even have to worry about it. Had quite a nice little viewfinder in it. Film, of course, so this is an unopened carton of Kodak film. We spoke about this last week, taking your spool along to the chemist, to Boots or photographic processors, and that excitement of getting back your packet of photos. By this time, colour, of course. There were a few, you might remember, Polaroid instant cameras where you got an instant photo, and it would come out of the front of the machine and you would stick it under your arm in the early days, I remember, or you'd go like that with it to allow it to process. There were a couple of evolutionary parts of instant cameras which really didn't take off. This is a Kodak version. I'm not going to take it out of the box because it is unopened. This was Kodak's version of an instant camera, which sadly was withdrawn because they had patent problems. I think the implication that they'd taken some from Polaroid. And there were other little evolutionary roads that kind of went nowhere with photography. This is a disc camera. So again, Kodak, and your film would come on a disc, which would go in there, flip in, and again, very much automated. So that's still photos. We spoke last week, we had the cine cameras, but this of course is your camcorder. This is a Sony one, and you would put your cassette in here. This is actually a small video cassette, very automated, very good quality. But as we spoke with last week, very good quality, but essentially you can get just as good quality on a really good phone nowadays, as I'm being filmed on my phone, which just proves how technology, as I said last time, has moved on so quickly. And of course, computers. And here we have two design classics from Apple Mac computers. This is a very early one from the late 1990s. This was used for many years by my colleague. You'll see the tiny screen here, which again is the size of maybe a tablet nowadays, an iPad or something like that. But so much work done on this. Tiny memory and hard drive compared with modern computers. You will also notice here there's no slots. I'm looking around, there's no slots for things like USB memory sticks. This was a floppy disk. Do you remember floppy disks? Tiny capacity for memory on it. Nonetheless, we managed on that. And this again is another Apple. This is the clamshell laptop. Absolute design classic. Lovely colours. A lot of attention to actually the thing looking good. What you do notice about it is though, it is so heavy. Absolute classic. So that's the Apple Mac side. Of course, the other side was PCs, personal computers, but also in the early days of word processing and computers, bringing down the cost was the Amstrad. And this is, if I could see, this isn't certainly an Amstrad, I think it has its name. There we are, the Notebook NC200. So I seem to remember like with the Apple Mac, it might have been just a green lettering that came up on the screen there, but do you remember? And do you remember getting your first computer? Quite an event. I certainly remember getting mine, and it was rather daunting to try and work out how the thing worked. Well, thank you for looking at this, a sort of revisit to more modern technology. Hope it brought back some memories. This has been filmed and videoed, I should say, in the Wii Museum of Memory, and we'll be opening at the end of April. This is 2021. As you can see, there's a little bit of a mess in the background because we're reorganising somewhat. But if you have some memories that you want to share with us, please visit us at www.livingmemory.org.uk. It'd be great to hear from you, and when we're open, please come and visit us here at Ocean Terminal. Thank you.